A city waits in a haze of dust, the morning heat rising from stones that have heard too many shouts. In the market, a laugh breaks like pottery. Two men argue, and a knife flashes in the shadow of an awning. Children run and dodge, chasing a goat down an alley, and the goat kicks at a fruit bowl, and there is delight in the mess, because no one looks twice at a small ruin anymore. High on the ridge, a figure stands where the wind tastes clean. He watches the way people step over the week. He watches a boy with sharp eyes slip a coin that is not his into his fist. He watches a woman pull her shawl tight as a drunk stumbles by. His name is Noah, and he is listening. The fields beyond the city lie scarred by hunger for more. Trees fall and are left where they land. Animals scatter at the thunder of feet. A stray dog limps past a broken pen, ribs pressing against skin. The world has a fever. Violence is the language in the streets and the fields, and no one bothers to translate. Noah listens because he has learned that the earth carries a heartbeat, and when it skips, heaven speaks. That night, the sky lies heavy with stars, and they look like warning lights above a dark sea. Noah sits by a small fire. The flames are steady and low. His wife moves quietly behind him, grinding grain, the stones singing a slow circle. The sons finish a fence repair and drop to the ground beside their father. For a long time, there is only crickets and crackling wood. Then the voice comes, not thunder, not a wind strong enough to bow trees, but a voice that presses through bone and thought, and the secret place where life began. Noah, the world is full of corruption. Every thought bends toward harm. The earth is bruised by the hands I made to bless it. An end is written. Make yourself an ark of cypress wood, a long house on the waters, with rooms within roofs. Cover it inside and out with pitch. These are its measures: 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, 30 cubits high. Set a roof to it with an opening along the top, and set a door in its side. I am bringing waters upon the earth, a flood to wipe away what devours. But you and your house will enter, because you walk with me. Noah does not look around to see if anyone heard. He does not argue with the dark. He nods once, and the nod is a prayer. In the morning, he walks the ridge again. The land holds the quiet like a breath. He marks the ground with a stick, tracing the length and the width. He digs his heel into the first corner. He says the measurements under his breath, and the numbers hold like anchor stones in his chest. The next day, he begins to gather wood. Shem and Ham and Japheth carry axes toward the grove that survived the last summer burn, and the rhythm of cutting becomes the rhythm of days. The sons trade jokes as they work, soft laughter that keeps the ache from setting in their shoulders. Noah counts each trunk, looks to the sky, and whispers the plan as if the sky might forget to remember. He stacks cedar boards. He lines up pegs. He selects beams with the patience of an old friend choosing words. The city watches. At first, it is curiosity. A table maker leans on his doorframe and squints at the lines forming on the ridge. A shepherd passing with a tired flock pauses, then shakes his head and clicks his tongue to move the sheep on. Weeks pass, and there is shape now, an outline that interrupts the horizon. The shepherd returns, and this time he laughs. What is it, old man? Building a barn on the hill with no animals to feed. Noah keeps working. His hands carry sap and grit. He thinks of the voice and the weight of it. Another morning, and a small crowd gathers. They have the feel of people who have seen too much and trust nothing that speaks of warning. A boy calls out, "Why so big, elder?" planning to live in there forever. Noah squints along the beam he is setting and answers without looking down. Long enough to hold what must be held. Wide enough for breath on a hard day. High enough to find light when the world looks low. A man with sharp teeth makes a show of pointing to the sky. Do you see a sea up there? Noah wipes his brow. Not yet. The work keeps its steady pace. The ark grows. Rooms appear inside like honeycomb. Shem walks each corridor, counting steps, murmuring what will go where. Ham measures the doorframe and cuts pegs to match. Japheth climbs to the top and learns what it means to balance on a beam with sky all around. At night, they sleep close to the scent of tar and wood, and in dreams they hear waves that are not there yet. Noah's wife walks the length of the unfinished deck with a basket on her arm. She scatters grain to the birds and notes how they gather, not wild like before, but with a careful calm that makes her pause. She does not say anything, but she saves more grain. The wives of the sun sew sacks and mend ropes and lay bundles of herbs to dry on the rail. There is a sense that days are narrowing, though the sun keeps rising wide and full. Rumors spread like spilled oil. A group of men arrives with the look of people who enjoy a spectacle. They clap slowly when Noah hoists a beam into place. "Where will you sail, righteous one?" "To the clouds," he answers as he always does, with work. His hands speak in cuts and ties. At midday he straightens, breathes, and tells his sons to rest. They eat flatbread with olives in the strip of shade beside the hull. Noah looks at the city and sees more knives than bread. He hears a child crying somewhere, and no one comes. The voice returns in the cool hour before day. It finds Noah on his knees with sawdust on his palms. "Take 2 of every kind with you, male and female, to keep life alive. Birds, livestock, creatures that creep on the ground. 7 pairs of the clean and a pair of the unclean. Store food for you and for them. The water will rise, and when it rests, the world will need a beginning." Noah nods again. He does not know how a world begins, but he knows how to build what holds it. They set to work with a new urgency that does not look like fear. It looks like a family preparing a house before a season changes. Shem writes lists in charcoal on a plank hung by a rope. Grain, dried figs, salted meat, fresh water in sealed jars, herbs for sickness, tools for mending, rope in coils, pitch in pots. Ham and his wife pack baskets and mark them with simple knots, a code they repeat under their breath until it sings. Japheth checks hinges and doors and the long ramp that will bear weight soon. Then a strange quiet settles over the land. Not silence, but a soft focus. The birds change their paths. Lines form in the air like threads drawing inward. A pair of cranes circles and lands on the ridge. A fox watches from the brush, then steps out with a mate and trots toward the structure as if it has always known the way. Shem stops mid-task. "Father." Noah turns and sees what he expected and still cannot name. The field begins to move with life. Hooves drum a slow procession. Wings cast shadows long and thin. Tortoises bump along with patient dignity, and even the gnats seem to hover in pairs. The people from the city follow, some to mock, some to stare, some with an ache rising that they do not understand. A woman presses a hand to her mouth when a lion and lioness walk past her with heads lowered, not hunting, not proud, only certain. Children climb a low wall to watch 2 small lizards glide over sun-warmed stones and up the ramp. The boy with the sharp eyes leans forward and forgets to guard his pocket. For a moment, everyone is quiet, because the world has become a line heading toward a door. Noah stands at the door and counts. He names each kind with a whisper, as if reading a poem he heard long ago. 2 by 2 they pass, and some in 7s. He directs them to rooms prepared. The goats go to the west stalls, where the air runs cooler. The doves to the highest perches near the long opening in the roof. The clean animals to larger pens stocked with hay. The creeping things to boxes lined with sand and soft leaves. The sons move among them with slow hands and steady breathing, and the wives bring water to lips and beaks. In the city, a circle of men builds a fire and tells stories about foolishness and old age. One tosses a branch into the flames and says that fear makes people see omens in dust. Another says that he once saw birds gather before a storm, and they were only after the worms. They drink, and the laughter grows, but it cannot drown the sound of hooves and wings passing like a heartbeat. Night comes, and the stars are a white river. Noah sits on the ramp and rubs pitch from his thumb. He speaks to the God who spoke to him, and his words are quiet and plain. I will hold what you give. I will not let the door fail. Teach me to wait without searching the sky every breath. He leans his back against the warm wood and closes his eyes. Sleep folds around him like a cloak. Morning brings heat like a hand on the brow. The air smells of grain and animal breath and sap. The wives lay out food, and they eat with a hunger that tastes like fuel and not like greed. The city sends a curious man with questions he pretends are jokes. So the birds lined up, and you gave out tickets. Noah smiles without showing teeth. The sky has a schedule none of us wrote. The man rolls his eyes and strolls off, but he looks back twice. There is one more task that Noah has delayed because it feels like a goodbye. He walks the length of the ark and checks every peg and rib, every seam and hinge. He leans his weight against the door and feels the give, then the set. He climbs to the roof and runs his hand along the opening that will bring light and air. He thinks of the first word God spoke and the spaces it made. Let there be. He descends and kneels to look along the keel, as if examining the bone of a living thing. The ark looks back at him in the way a house looks at the family who will fill it, which is to say, without eyes and with complete attention. On the seventh day after the gathering begins, the world holds its breath. The air feels heavy, as if the sky crouches, ready to move. Noah hears the voice in the stillness. Go into the ark, you and all your house. For I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. 7 days from now the waters will come. Noah rises and calls to his family. It is time. The words are simple, and they do not tremble. The sons stand. The wives tie up the last bundles. Noah's wife fills a jug and sets it down with final care. They lead the last pair of animals into their place. The light pours down the ramp and lays a path of gold that looks like favor. The city watches from a distance with mixed eyes. Some shake their heads and turn away, already bored. Some fold their arms and dare the sky to do anything at all. A few linger, not brave enough to step forward, not hard enough to laugh. The boy with the sharp eyes stares at the door, and for the first time wonders if a door can be mercy. Noah stands at the threshold and looks at the land that raised him. He sees the grove cut down to beams that now hold a shape big enough to carry tomorrow. He sees the field where he taught his sons to aim a plow straight. He sees the ridge where he first heard a voice that sounded like the inside of truth. He lifts his hands and lets them fall. He does not speak a speech. He steps inside. Within, the ark breathes. Animals settle into rhythms. The lowing of cattle folds into the coo of doves and the rustle of hay. The lanterns throw warm circles on curved walls. The air is thick with scent, but it is a living thickness. Shem checks the lines that secure water jars to the beams. Ham tightens a latch on the door from within. Japheth counts the sacks of grain again and touches each knot as if each one were a promise. Outside the sun lowers, and the first cool breeze in many days slides across the hill. It carries the taste of far water. In the city a woman looks up from her work and closes her eyes, and some old memory of a river in spring touches her and recedes. A man tightens his cloak and tells himself that wind is wind. Noah sits with his wife in a small room they made near the center. It is barely more than a corner with a mat and a low chest. He takes her hand, and they are quiet. There is no litany to run through. Every task has been done. The quiet stretches and softens until it becomes rest. The sons sit near the door that is shut and braced, and they pass a cup between them without speaking. Then the voice returns, not as warning, but as a benediction. I am with you. Remember the breath that moved over the waters in the beginning. Remember that I know how to make worlds. Noah bows his head. In the upper deck, a dove preens its wing. In the lower pens, a lamb chews and blinks. Everything waits. Outside, the last watchers drift away toward their houses with the mutter of people unwilling to admit that they waited for something. The boy with the sharp eyes lingers longest, then disappears into an alley. The hill is empty. The ark stands like an answer. Night falls. Clouds gather in the dark like slow ships. The wind swings and comes from a new place, and it carries a coolness that presses against skin and says that change is near. Noah sleeps, and his sleep is deep, not because he is free of fear, but because he is held by intention. At dawn the sky is white like the inside of a shell. Birds that did not enter the ark dive and rise in tight patterns, as if unsure which direction is home. The world feels softer, and the edges of things are dim. Noah rises and walks the corridor, touching the beams as he passes. He reaches the door and sets his palm against it. The wood is cool. On the top deck, he opens the shutters along the roof opening, and the air that enters is cool and wet. His beard catches the damp. The family eats a small meal. They eat quietly, aware that what feeds them today must feed them many days. Each swallow is deliberate. They tidy their bowls and sit. A silence falls that is not empty. It is the silence of a theater before the first note, the silence of a shore before a tide that no one can push away. Noah turns toward the voice inside him and waits. There is no lightning. There is no trumpet. There is only the first soft sound of a drop finding wood. It is gentle. If you were outside, you might miss it. Inside the ark, the sound is clear. Tap, then another. Tap. The second drop finds the same place, and the sound changes, deeper now. Tap, tap. Noah closes his eyes. He feels the floor beneath him, as if it were the back of an animal that is about to stand. The sky takes a breath. The world holds the pause. The story of rest has been written. The story of descent is about to begin. When a world grows loud with harm, obedience can feel like a quiet joke. Noah shows that obedience is the kind of quiet that builds a shelter before the weather even changes. He does not argue with the forecasts of heaven. He learns to measure wood by a voice he trusts, and he makes space for life before the storm asks for proof. In a time when we celebrate speed, he chooses endurance. In a crowd that chose laughter, he chooses the patient work of mercy. The lesson is simple. When the world is noisy, build what keeps life alive. When mockery comes, keep counting the beams. One line of hope remains. The same God who warned Noah is the God who waits inside the ark with him. And the first drop you hear is not the end. It is the beginning of a rescue. The deck is ready, the door is shut, and the sky is gathering itself. The first drop has found wood.